Welcome to HFY Codex. If you love epic sci-fi stories where humanity shines, you're in the right place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for thrilling HFY adventures. Join us and be part of the journey. The reunion on Dustfall Station was quiet. Too quiet for a place that once buzzed with life and war machines. The metal walls were rusted. The lights flickered weakly, and only a few traders moved through the dim halls. Most people had forgotten this place, but one old man hadn't. Captain Joran Voss stepped out of the transport shuttle, leaning on a cane, his breath slow but steady. His coat was torn at the edges, his boots dusty from forgotten roads. But his eyes, sharp as ever, scanned the station. He hadn't been here in 15 years. Not since the war ended and his command was stripped from him. He didn't come to visit the past. He came because of a signal, a short encrypted message sent in a language no one else should remember. It read only 2 words. Come alone. People pass by him without care. Just another old man walking slowly through the remains of something lost, but as he reached the old command deck, the silence shifted. Someone was waiting, standing, perfectly still in the shadows near the sealed doors. He didn't speak, didn't stop. Just walked forward until he heard it, a voice he could never forget. It's an honor to serve you again, Captain. The old man froze, his breath catching in his chest. She stepped out of the dark, taller than him by a head, with smooth blue skin, silver eyes, and long dark braids down her back. Her armor was old, scratched, but still carried the insignia of his squad, Kailari. The alien girl soldier who once followed his every command, the one he thought died on the last mission. He looked at her, not speaking, just searching her face for truth. Then he whispered, Kailari, how I survived. She answered quietly, bowing her head. You told me to retreat. I disobeyed. I stayed behind. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she removed her gloves, showing old scars burned deep. I protected something they must not find. Joran stepped closer, reaching out a shaky hand, but stopping inches away from her face. You didn't age, he said finally. You're the same. I was designed that way. Captain, she replied, my kind don't grow old like humans, but we remember. He lowered his hand, looking away, the weight of memory heavy on his shoulders. I buried you in my mind, he said. I told myself I didn't leave anyone behind. You didn't. Kailari said gently, you saved us all. Even if they blamed you for it, they stood in silence for a long moment, broken only by the hum of failing machines around them. Then Kailari stepped to the console and tapped a hidden code, unlocking the old command room. The doors opened with a deep groan, metal grinding against metal, revealing a small chamber still untouched by time. Inside were crates, power cells, and a stasis pod glowing faintly in the center. Joran stepped inside slowly, eyes narrowing as he studied the pod. Is that what you protected? He asked. Kailari nodded, her voice quiet. It's not a weapon, Captain. It's a life, a child. The result of something they wanted erased. Joran turned to her, a strange tension in his jaw. Human? He asked. Or alien? Both. She replied, born of peace during war. A symbol they feared more than guns. Joran felt the old fire rising in his chest. The same feeling he had before battles. They will come, he said. If they know this child exists, they already know, Kailari whispered. That's why I called you. Suddenly, the station lights flickered violently, then steadied. A deep alarm buzzed in the distance, and Kailari moved to the screen. One ship just dropped out of hyperspace. She said, no ID code, stealth class. Joran cursed under his breath, moving faster than he had in years. Get the pod ready to move, he ordered. We may not get another chance. Kailari looked at him with a hint of something in her eyes. Hope, fear, maybe both. Will you lead again? she asked softly. Joran looked at the old console. At the walls, where he once gave orders that saved lives and ended others. He drew a long breath and stood straighter, his voice clear and calm. Just this once, he said, for her, outside. The sound of docking clamps echoed through the station. The hunter ship had arrived. Silent and deadly. Inside, an old captain and his long-lost soldier prepared for a war they thought they'd escaped. But Dustfall Station would not fall in silence. This time it would echo with one voice, again the voice of command. The voice of defiance, and somewhere inside the cold pod, a child dreamed. Protected by those who refused to surrender, ghosts of the past. The emergency lights pulsed red across Dustfall Station, slow and steady like a heartbeat counting down to war. Kailari locked the doors to the command deck, her fingers moving. Fast across the rusted controls, Joran stood by the stasis pod, watching the lights blink softly around the sleeping child. He didn't ask questions, not yet. But the past burned behind his eyes like it had never left him. "Tell me everything," he said finally, his voice low. "Start with why you're..." Still alive, Kailari paused, then sat down on a metal crate. Armor creaking softly as she moved. She didn't look at him, not at first. There was a mission. She began 15 years ago, deep inside enemy space. Joran nodded slowly. "I remember. We were told to retrieve a scientist working on alien-human fusion tech." Kailari looked at him now, eyes glowing softly under the red light. She wasn't just a scientist, she said. She was a mother, and she was pregnant. Joran's eyes narrowed. But he didn't interrupt. "She helped build the child in that pod," Kailari continued. "Her DNA mixed with engineered human genetic DNA." Captain Joran stepped back like he'd been hit. "What are you saying?" he asked sharply. Kailari stood, slowly walking toward the pod. "I'm saying the girl in that pod is your daughter." "Captain?" The words hung heavy in the air, heavier than the station's cold silence. He moved toward the pod, putting his hand on the glass. "She shouldn't exist," he whispered. "The council ordered all cross specimens destroyed." "They did," Kailari agreed. "That's why I disobeyed orders." She told him the truth. How the mission was a setup, a trap meant to destroy all evidence of the hybrid experiment. When Joran's shuttle left, thinking Kailari was dead, she had dragged the wounded scientist into hiding. The woman died giving birth, but made Kailari promise to keep the child safe. And so, for 15 years, she moved from world to world, hiding in shadows, never staying long. "They sent hunters after me," she said, "but I never let them touch her." Joran sank into a chair, still staring at the pod. "All this time, I thought I lost everything," he murmured. "But I lost more than I knew." Kailari stood quietly beside him. "She has your eyes, Captain, and her mother's." Fire, outside. The sound of footsteps echoed through the lower decks. Joran stood again, his hand brushing the grip of the old blaster at his side. "Who are they?" he asked. "Empire Black Claws," Kailari answered, her voice hardening. "Genetic purists. Fanatics. They believe hybrids are corruption, not life. And they followed you here," he said bitterly. Kailari nodded. "They tracked the signal I sent to you." Joran smirked, cold and dry. "Then they're fools," he said, "because I'm not the man they remember." He walked to the wall, opened an old weapons locker hidden behind a loose panel. Inside were relic spells, rifles, grenades, old armor plates marked with battle scars. He tossed a rifle to Kailari, who caught it in one smooth motion. "This feels right," she said, checking the charge. Joran nodded. "Because it is." For a moment, the past didn't feel like a weight. It felt like fuel. Joran wasn't just an old man anymore. He was the captain again, the one who made enemies fear the sound of his voice. They moved through the halls, setting traps, sealing off escape routes. Kailari guided him through maintenance shafts she had used for years. 15 years hiding in this place, Joran said, impressed. It wasn't hiding, she replied. It was waiting by the time the first hunter unit breached the outer deck. They were ready. Lasers lit the darkness, and Joran fired with deadly calm. Every shot cleaned. Kailari moved like smoke, her body graceful and brutal at once. They fought side by side, just like before, but this time it was personal. Not a war for flags or orders. This was for a child, for a legacy stolen and hidden in the dark. The hunters were fast, modified with spiked armor and red lenses that glowed like blood, but they didn't expect resistance. Not from a dying station and a forgotten captain. They didn't expect Kailari. They didn't expect the old fire to burn again. As the last hunter dropped, Joran leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "You good?" Kailari asked. Her gun still hot, just warming up, he replied with a tired grin. Suddenly, the CUM panel crackled. A voice, filtered and cruel, spoke. In their language, you cannot protect what does not belong. It said turn over the hybrid, or be erased. Joran walked to the mic, pressed the button, and spoke with ice in his voice. "She's not a hybrid," he said. "She's my daughter." There was silence on the other end. Then the signal cut. "They'll send more," Kailari warned. "Let them," Joran replied. Loading a new power cell into his weapon, "I buried one past Kailari," he said. "I won't bury another," and in that moment, surrounded by ashes of war and machines that barely lived, two warriors stood ready. The captain had returned. And this time, the galaxy would remember why they feared his name. The thing they hid, the outer wall of Dustfall Station, cracked with each enemy blast. Panels shook loose, sparks flew from the ceiling, and fire danced in the corners of forgotten halls. But inside the command deck, time seemed to stand still. Joran stood over the stasis pod, his hand flat on the glass, watching the child inside slowly stir. Kailari stood behind him, silent, eyes fixed on the blinking red light of the alarm. "She's waking," Joran said softly. "Can she handle this?" "She's stronger than she looks," Kailari replied. "She always was." The child's eyelids fluttered, her skin a soft blend of human and alien tones. Her silver hair floated gently in the stasis fluid, and her small hands twitched as life returned to her body. She was no longer just an experiment or a secret. She was real, living, and connected to both of them. Kailari stepped forward, placing her palm over Joran's. "She called me mother once," she whispered. "Not by blood, but by choice." Joran turned to her, his voice low but steady. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't think you'd want to know," she said. "They blamed you. They erased your records. They said you abandoned her kind. I didn't abandon anyone." Joran growled. "I followed orders and lost everything. Now you have a second chance," she said. "We both do." Behind them, the station's core groaned again, another power relay failing under stress. Joran sighed and turned toward the panel, pulling up a schematic of the station's tunnels. "If we don't move her now, we won't get another chance." Kailari nodded and began unlocking the stasis pod. The glass split open with a soft hiss, and cool vapor rolled out. The child inside, slowly, opened her eyes bright violet with glowing rings. She blinked, then looked up at the two people she didn't recognize, but somehow trusted. "Where?" she whispered, her voice dry and soft. "You're safe," Kailari answered, wrapping a warm cloak around her small body. "We're here now," Joran said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We won't let anything happen to you." She looked at him for a long time, then tilted her head. "You're the voice I heard when I dreamed." Joran blinked, stunned. Kailari nodded slowly. "She hears echoes, Captain, even inside stasis. She connected to something in you. Alarms screamed louder now. A second enemy vessel docking at the lower bay. We have to move, Joran said, lifting the child gently in his arms. Where? Kailari asked. Weapons ready again. To the core lift, he answered. It still leads to the lower shuttle hangar. The trio ran through the crumbling station, past old battle scars and flickering lights. Kailari cleared the path, her rifle striking down scouts trying to block them. Joran carried the child with careful strength, every step faster than the last. Suddenly, a new voice echoed through the station speakers. Male, deep, cold one Joran knew too well, Captain Voss, it said. You were a legend. Once, Joran froze for a heartbeat, his jaw tightening. That voice, he said, Commander Rax. The same, Kailari said, her voice sharp. The one who betrayed your mission, Rax, Joran muttered. He led the purge. Killed the others, blamed me. The voice continued, smooth and cruel. You found the child, Rax said. Good. Hand her over and I'll spare your loyal pet. Kailari's eyes darkened, but she said nothing. Joran stepped forward, speaking. To the air, she's not a pet. She's a better soldier than you ever were. Silence followed, then laughter. You always were sentimental. Rax said, It's why you lost. No, Joran replied. I lost because I trusted you. They reached the lift and entered, the doors sealing behind them with a loud clang. As they descended, the child looked up at him, eyes filled with quiet wonder. Are you my father? She asked softly. Joran didn't answer right away. He simply held her closer, brushing her hair back gently. I don't know what I deserve, Kay whispered. But yes, I am. Kailari looked at both of them, something in her chest tightening. For years, she protected the child, carried the burden alone. Now, for the first time, it wasn't just her. Now they were three. The lift opened into the hangar, cold, empty, except for one battered stealth shuttle hidden behind old crates. Kailari ran ahead to power it up, fingers flying across the control panel. Still works, she said, but not for long. Joran placed the child inside, strapping her gently into the seat. You'll fly her. He said to Kailari. What about you? She asked. I stay, he replied. Someone has to keep. Rax busy. No, Kailari snapped. Stepping forward, we fight together. I'll draw them away, buy you time. Joran said, You're faster, and she needs you more. For a long moment, they stared at each other, two soldiers. Broken, but not beaten. Finally, Kailari nodded. Then this is not goodbye. She said, No. Joran answered. It's the beginning. The shuttle engines roared to life, lights blinking as the door began to close. Kailari held Joran's hand through the gap, her grip firm. Honor to serve you again, Captain, she whispered. He smiled, not as a soldier, but as a father, and an honor to be saved by you. Kailari, the door sealed shut, and the shuttle lifted into the black sky beyond the station. Joran turned back to the hangar's entrance, gripping his weapon. Tightly above him, the footsteps came closer, and Captain Voss stood tall, ready to face the thing that hunted his past, because now he had something worth protecting again. Last command. The blast door trembled as something heavy slammed into it again and again. Each impact echoed through the hangar like a giant hammer breaking time itself. Joran stood still in the middle of the room, gun in hand, breathing slow and steady. His back was straight, shoulders square, as if his old body had forgotten age. Outside, the enemy was preparing for the final push, but inside, Captain Voss waited without fear. The hangar lights flickered once more, then snapped to red, a final warning. Above him, hidden vents hissed open, spilling smoke and the scent of burning oil. He checked his weapon, tightened his grip, and took one last look at the sky through the cracked ceiling. The shuttle was gone now, carrying Kailari and the child beyond reach. That was enough. The blast door split open with a roar of energy, metal peeling back like paper, and through the smoke walked Commander Rax, his black armor glowing with red lines. Behind him marched 5 elite soldiers, each one heavier, faster. Colder than the last, Joran didn't flinch. "You're late," he said calmly. Rax removed his helmet, revealing the same arrogant face Joran remembered, but colder, sharper, almost machine-like now. "I see you've lost your hair, Captain." Rax sneered, "But not your bad jokes." Joran smirked. "You lost something too." He replied, "Your soul." Rax stepped forward, raising his hand. The soldiers spread out, forming a wall of armor and weapons. "I only want the child," Rax said. "Give her to me, and you can die quickly." "She's gone," Joran answered. "And you'll never catch her." Rax tilted his head, blinking. Slowly, "Then you've chosen death." "No," Joran said, powering up the weapon in his hand. "I've chosen to finish what you started." The hangar exploded with sound. Joran fired first, aiming straight for the soldier on the right. His shot struck clean, shattering the man's chest plate and sending him crashing to the floor. Rax roared in rage, his hand flashing with plasma as he charged. But Joran was already moving, ducking behind crates, firing again and again. His old bones screamed, but his spirit burned bright. The enemy surrounded him, firing from all sides. A blast hit Joran's shoulder, knocking him into a steel wall. He gritted his teeth, wiped blood from his mouth, and pulled himself back up. "This is for the team, you." "Betrayed," he muttered, firing back with precision. Another soldier fell, then a third. But Joran was slowing now, breath shallow, vision blurry. Still, he smiled, because every second he held them here was a second closer to escape for Kailari and the child. Rax finally reached him, slamming Joran against the floor. "You could have ruled," Rax hissed. "You could have joined me. I'd rather die free than live like you." Joran spat back, blood dripping from his lips. Rax raised his glowing blade, ready to finish him, but before the strike landed, a sudden blast rocked the hangar from above. Steel beams collapsed, and a figure dropped through the smoke like lightning. Kailari covered in burns, her armor cracked, her eyes burning. She landed between Joran and Rax with a roar. Firing twin pistols in perfect rhythm, "Get away from him," she shouted. The last 2 soldiers turned too late. Her shots pierced their cores and sent them falling. Rax swung at her, but Kailari moved faster, ducking, spinning, striking him. Hard on the side, Joran pulled himself up once more, gun shaking in his hand. "Thought I told you to fly?" He groaned. "I did," Kailari grinned. "Then I turned around." The 2 of them stood side by side, just like before, old war partners, one last time. Rax lunged again, his blade slicing the air. Joran blocked, Kailari struck. Together, they moved as one. Finally, Joran saw his opening. He grabbed Rax by the chest and pressed the trigger of the grenade in his hand. "This is my last command," he whispered. "Burn with your lies." The explosion lit the hangar in white fire. Silence followed, deep and endless. When the dust cleared, Kailari coughed, crawling from the rubble. Her body was scorched, but still moving. She found Joran lying beside Rax's shattered body. His chest barely rose, blood pooling beneath him. She held his hand tightly, tears spilling from her silver eyes. "You saved her," she whispered. "You saved us all." Joran opened one eye, weakly smiled. "Wasn't alone," he murmured. "You were with me." He tried to lift his hand, trembling, and Kailari guided it to her cheek. "I failed so many," he said, "but not her." "You gave her a future," Kailari said, voice breaking, "and gave me purpose again." Joran's fingers went still. His smile stayed, peaceful and proud. Kailari wept beside him, not just for the loss, but for the honor. He died a warrior, a father, and a man who never surrendered. Later, far from Dustfall, the child would grow into a leader. Raised by the stories of the captain who chose hope over orders, and the alien soldier who called him family, and across the stars. The name Captain Voss would be spoken once more, not as a forgotten soldier, but as the man who made peace possible.